welcome to the first episode of White Plains Public Safety's podcast, The Gems of Public Safety. First and foremost, I want to thank Commissioner Wade for coming up with this concept. I think it's a great way to reach our community and kind of give them a little bit more insight as to what we do as a police department, as a public safety department. And I'm really excited. So, first episode is the unit that I am a part of, which is the mental health outreach team. And to the right of me, I have one of the originators and also my direct supervisor, Lieutenant Gus Fazzino. How's it going, Gus?
Hey, Jay.
I'm good, man. I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good.
I want the public to know, all right, a little bit about you. So just give me a little bit of insight about your career and how you, just give us a short bio, how you came to be Lieutenant Gus Fazzino.
Okay. So I have 26 years with the department. Started out in patrol, obviously, and then moved up to our Community Advocacy Strategic Initiatives Division, which is basically what we all fall under now. Started there as a victim services detective, and then that kind of rolled into a domestic violence detective. And then along those lines, we started realizing that we were having a lot of repeat calls with people suffering from mental illness and being in crisis. So the department realized that, to cut down on officers' safety issues and repeat calls, they said, hey, what can we do to impact these calls in a little bit of a different light? So they started the mental health outreach team, which is what you guys are all a part of now. And I eventually moved over to that, and the goal of the unit was really to be able to link people in crisis with services and kind of keep them out of the criminal justice system, because we realized arresting them wasn't the answer. That wasn't going to get them the help they needed. So what could we do to help facilitate getting them the services they need? And that was really what the goal for myself and my partners at the time was, to how do we get services for the people that need them.
So this is police reform before police reform was a thing. So this is
Absolutely.
This is great. That I did not know that we were one of the first pioneers of it in the area. It's great. It's a great story. I like I said, I had no idea. I knew it was in existence. How long has it been in existence?
So I would say, in the early concept of it, I would say it would be as far back as maybe 2005, 2006, something along those lines, 2007, in that area. Okay. And then it just continually evolved to what we have today.
Gotcha. Well, it's that's a long time to be around. Like I said, I don't think a lot of people knew we were in existence. But this is what this podcast is about, to shed light on, this department and the things that we bring to this community. So as I go through the bios, to the left of me is my partner, Detective Kamar McKenzie. So I want the public to know about Detective Kamar McKenzie. So tell us a little bit about how you started in law enforcement, and we'll go from there.
Okay. So I always like to start off by saying I'm a White Plains lifer. Born and raised in White Plains, man. Went to Church Street, Eastview, all the way through the high school, man. So I always like to start off with that, because White Plains is a big part of that shaped me to the man I am today. So a lot of the teachers, a lot of the coaches from teams, they shaped me and helped me become the man I am today. So I always like to start off with that. But I started out in policing, about 11 years in policing. I started out with NYPD.
Okay.
I did 5 years with the transit unit, TD-12 in the Bronx. And what was crazy is in the Bronx, you encounter a lot of homeless parties on the train, a lot of people dealing with crisis. So I didn't realize that I was kind of doing the practice for the work I'm doing now back then, because I was, talking to them, de-escalating on the train. It gets kind of crazy in the city. So I was training for that, and I always felt like I had a good grasp of how to talk to people. My personality, I have no problem being in any room, talking to anybody, or just having a conversation. So I felt like I did very well. So as I transferred to White Plains, which was great, because now I'm getting to come back home. I worked in patrol, and then once I got the opportunity, chosen by our fearless leader here to be part of our Post 3 unit, and it was just seamless, man. It was seamless. All that work that I did before in the city kind of prepared me to now and speak to some of these individuals that we deal with on a daily basis. it's just rewarding, man. It's so rewarding to give back to the community, give back to the people who shaped you, and just have the opportunity to work with some great guys.
It's great. You're the true definition of homegrown, right?
Yeah,
You
man, I'm
said,
telling you.
born and raised.
White Plains,
And now,
Dubset.
Dubset, yeah. And now you're giving back to your communities. That's a beautiful thing. Obviously, I'm sitting here as well. I'm going to give you guys a brief bio of me and how I came to be a member of this police department. So I was a police officer in the NYPD. I got hired July 11th of 2005. I spent a short period down there doing Operation Impact and then a little bit of patrol work. And then I transferred over to White Plains in 2007. And then shortly thereafter, I was assigned to NCU. I was in NCU for about 4 years. Then I was on a truck for about 10 years with Detective Cianci over there. And the opportunity for the mental health outreach team came up, and I said, I got to do this. I'm very passionate about mental health. I'm very passionate about helping others in the community. So I said, let me throw my hat in the ring. And this guy here says that he was pulling for me the whole time. But I was a little nervous when I went for the interview because I had no idea, because I knew there was a lot of great candidates that were putting in for it. And I didn't think I had what it took to be a part of the unit. But, I think things worked out for the best, and I ended up being in this unit. So I've been in this unit for about 3 years now. And I was trained by the guy to the extreme right of me, who is a huge wealth of knowledge, Detective Fred Cianci. And I was going to give him a little brief intro, but I'll let Fred do it, because I think him saying it will probably do a lot better than me trying to go into it. So, Fred, let the people know how you came to be Detective Fred Cianci.
There you go. I appreciate that, Jay.
No problem, man.
Detective Fred Cianci. I'm just started 19, my 19th year, which is wild because, everybody says it from the second you get here, like, enjoy it. It goes fast. Time just kind of moves on. You hit that 5-year mark. You hit that 10-year mark, 15. You never think it's going to end, but here I am, hitting my 19th, which is crazy. I just started 19. I started off here in patrol. I kind of laid the groundwork, see what I wanted to do. There was a ton of opportunity here, different units to go into. One that kind of caught my eye was the emergency services unit.
Yep.
So I was fortunate enough to get a spot in there. I tried out. I was able to get it. And I did that for about 7 years. And while I was in that unit, I happened to have the luxury of working with then Detective Fazzino and Detective Palmiato. Just because the nature of the business with the emergency services unit, you're going to a lot of the high priority calls, which, I'm sure at one point you'll get those guys on here as well, explain a little more about what they do. But one of the ones was getting into, people in crisis. And I got to see how the post-3 unit worked in dealing with people in crisis. And it was just a different side of the job. I feel like I've always had the opportunity or the ability to communicate and reason with people. So it just always seemed like it was a fit. And I was fortunate enough, a spot to open up. Just kind of timing worked out for me. I was able to slide in. And, that's how I kind of came here. That's how I got into this unit.
Okay, cool, man. I mean, Freddie actually has a partner that we're going to call in right now, because I think he's our local celebrity, but I want people to kind of understand and grasp what his partner does and what his capabilities are and how long he's been with the unit, man. So without further ado, we're going to bring in our team mascot, K9 Homer.
I love you too. I love you too, buddy.
All right, break it up.
All right, sorry. Sit. Good boy. So this is Homer. Homer's 2-year-old yellow lab, comes from an organization called Puppies Behind Bars. We've been fortunate enough to have Homer now for probably about 6 months, 7 months. We utilize him for more like a comfort dog for victims of crimes, for officers that deal with traumatic incidents. One of the ways we'll utilize him is if somebody comes in, let's say, he's going to wander. He loves to say hi to everybody. Let's say a victim of a crime comes in, whether it's a sexual assault, a youth, domestic violence. It's a traumatic situation, right, for the victim involved. So his function is to try and bring that person some type of comfort in the moments when they have to relive some of the worst situations in their life, right? So now this person, whatever happened to them, if they come to headquarters, now they give a statement to one of our detectives about what happened. So essentially, they're now reliving this situation all over again. So Homer has a series of commands that he's learned that kind of help this individual to comfort them, whether it's sitting with them, sitting next to them. He's has about 50 different commands that he's able to do. Interesting backstory on him. So Homer, hey, come here. He's laying down back there. Interesting backstory to him. He was raised in Fishkill Correctional Facilities, again under the guidance of an organization called Puppies Behind Bars, where it's actual inmates from New York State Correctional Facilities raise these dogs to become comfort dogs, right? So we go there, they take these dogs at 8 weeks and they keep them for 18 months old. At 18 months old, they run a course where we'll go into the prison for about 2 weeks, in and out every day, and we'll learn how to utilize these dogs. While they're there, they're going over different commands that they're learning, different obediences. So when we go there, they're primed up, ready to go. It's really just us learning how to utilize them. It's really like a full circle thing, right? These guys are in prison. They committed some type of crime, whatever reason they're there. It's also Bedford's Women's Facility as well. But they're there, and their whole thing is they want to give back, right? So now they get these dogs, and they're raising them to give to law enforcement, to give to schools, to try and offer comfort to crime victims. So it really is an interesting program. It's great. Again, it's called Puppies Behind Bars. It's a great organization, not-for-profit, that, if you're interested in more, you can look them up and read into it a little bit more.
Yeah, man. Thank you for sharing that experience. I just got to ask one question, right?
Yeah.
How was it like being a police officer going into a prison and like living amongst the people that we had, for all intents and purposes, put away?
Yeah.
And, they're training these dogs and you have to work, hand in hand. I think it's a great thing. I think it's a good way to kind of, look at the other side.
Yeah.
Because we're on the opposite side. So just give us a little insight about that, and I'll get into some other questions.
Yeah, so, going there every day, and it's 2 weeks when you're there. You're away from your family, can't come home for the full 14 days, and you're going into the prison. So it gives you a little context into their life as well, right? And I'll touch on that in just a second, but, onto the being in there and how it made me feel. But going there for 14 days and just being like, wow, these guys now, they're here for some of these guys 10, 20, 30 years they've been in jail. And here I am for 2 weeks, and I'm like, wow, this is tough. Like, I can't imagine having to do this for an extended period of time like they are, right? So just to kind of give you a little context of what they're feeling on a smaller scale, or what they must be feeling day to day. But I'll be honest, man, I was worried about it, and a lot of people asked me that same question, like, you weren't worried going in there, being a police officer, or anything else? I wasn't. They were complete gentlemen the entire time. They treated us with the utmost respect. We treated them with the utmost respect. And it was an understanding that, like, they've done something spectacular, and, we were there to learn from them. There was no, I'm better than you, you're a convict or anything like that. And there was no, you're a police officer, blah, blah, blah. It was a great experience all the way through. They were perfect gentlemen the whole way through. And at the end, it's emotional, right? Because these guys now, they're raising these dogs from 8 weeks to 18 months. And obviously, anybody who's owned a dog, like, you grow an attachment to that dog.
Absolutely.
That's so deep. So, it's tough. The last day we're there, and we have to now take ownership of these dogs, and they come with us. And these guys who are, prison's a hopeless place. You're in there, and you're seeing this, and it's like, this is a hopeless place. So it's nice, and the best way I could frame it is like, we all worked on a class project together, and now, you guys did all the work, and now I'm handing the assignment to the teacher.
Yeah, you're getting all the credit.
Right? So I like to give them props whenever I can. His razor, Kess, was a phenomenal individual, and did a great job with Homer, who I might add was the valedictorian of the class.
That's a good ad there. So what this podcast is supposed to do is supposed to bring some light as to who we are, outside of work, and kind of humanizing the badge. So I'm going to start with Gus here. Who were you before this career? What did you want to be growing up, and was this always the plan?
So, yeah, I would say being a police officer was always a plan. Growing up in Yorktown, that was
Go Huskers.
yep, Cornhuskers.
Cornhuskers. I'm sorry.
So yeah, so that was always like the goal for me was to be a police officer. I remember taking a school trip at a young age to the police station there, and it just really impacted me. And it was a small town back then, so I kind of liked the whole feel of it. I think that's a cool job. I want to do that. And then, they would drive by the house. I would wave, to the officers when they drove by. So I don't know. It was just something that I always wanted, not knowing the avenues that I would take in this career and where I would be now. I didn't really foresee that.
Yeah.
And I didn't really, I'm very thankful for White Plains and the opportunities that it has given me, for sure. We're far ahead of most, I would say.
I agree.
If you look at just the blueprint of this unit and what we do, having a social worker embedded with us and all the great stuff that we do, it's really, truly, you could truly say that you help people, that we make a difference in lives, I hope. I did not expect to be where I am, but I expected to be, in the field, let's say,
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy you touched on the social worker part.
Yeah.
I totally forgot to mention that in the beginning of the episode. Just tell us a little bit about the social worker aspect
Sure.
and how it works with the unit.
Right. So that's the beauty of the unit, really, is the social work component to it. And we're very thankful for the partnership we have with Westchester County Department of Community Mental Health. We have the social worker embedded. They work out of your office. And that's a layer that, for having it, we're technically called a crisis intervention team. And that's, a big part of it is having that social worker embedded with us, because it gives us the opportunity to take a step back as police officers and let the mental health professionals take a step forward and really help, link those people in crisis with the right services and not make it a police matter. That's the beauty of it, and it works. We've been doing it in this kind of format. We've been doing it for, 15 years, if not more, solid, with just having social workers on board.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
That we have that. That was one of the first things I noticed when we came in. I was like, oh man, they have a social worker attached here. I never knew KG's name. I just always saw him. Yeah, I just always saw him in the office.
The great Keith Grant.
The great Keith Grant. I just want to take time to, put his name out there, because when I came in the unit, that's what you guys spoke about. And I remember seeing him, but I was just, I was a young guy running around, didn't really know what his purpose was. And so when I got up there, it was Mildred, and she was a wealth of knowledge as well. So this is just something that I think other departments should kind of look into, as far as having that social worker aspect attached to a unit where there's, police officers who have the tactical advantage, but also having the social worker element to it. I think that's great. So, Kamar, I'm going to spin the same question over to you. Like, is this something you wanted to do? Was this part of the plan? Or did it just kind of fall in your lap and came into it?
Not at all, man. Like, I was coming college and high school, I was sports heavy.
Okay.
I wanted to play or be involved in sports some way. Obviously didn't turn out I was going to play professional. That wasn't going to happen, but a sports agent is where I saw myself. I said, okay, I can be involved with it. I can do the sports agent thing. I'm still, entrenched in that athletic part of it. I took business administration in school. It kind of didn't pan out. I ended up graduating. I worked in healthcare. So I worked at Westchester Medical Center. Crazy. I worked at behavioral health. So I was actually still getting training to not even know it once again. So I guess my journey has been already kind of paved already. But so I worked there. And then the birth of my child at a young age kind of put me on a track like I need to do something, career-wise. In addition to the, the pressure being, anybody know Caribbean household, Jamaican household, it's, you got to do something, get a career.
Yep.
You got to do something right away. So, so I took the test. I took a number of city tests. I took, FD, I took PD, everything. And then I just happened to get chosen for police. And it's crazy how things kind of turn out, because that's exactly the calling that was right for me. You know what I mean? Like the people I met, the individuals I interacted with, the training I've gotten, these are lifelong memories and lifelong training that I'll use forever within my personal life as well. And then, like I said, full circle, like I said earlier, coming back now to White Plains and be able to use those tools and be able to connect with the kids in White Plains and just use everything that I have and give back. Like I said, it's a wild experience. Like just getting the wave of getting anything back here. So I'm appreciative, man. So I know I'm right where I need to be.
Yeah,
So,
sounds like there's
good.
a blessing in your life.
Yeah,
Freddie, I
man.
got to spin that question to you.
Yeah.
Was this part of the plan? Did Freddie always want to be Detective Cianci,
Yeah.
or was it something else in the mix?
I don't know. It was always the plan. Much like Kamar was saying, when I was younger, I got hired young. I got hired at 23. So I was just kind of getting my feet wet. I went to school for criminal justice. I kind of had an idea that I either wanted to go police or fire, but I wasn't sure which direction I was fully committed to. I started taking a bunch of tests, like a lot of people do. I was slotted to go to the police academy for NYPD for January of 2008. I was all done with everything. I was ready to go. And then I happened to get the call for White Plains. It was Thanksgiving Eve of 2007.
Ooh.
Yeah, I remember. It stuck out in my mind. So I was like, you know what? This is the path that I'm going to try out. Let me see what it is. Is that or FD? I knew I wanted to be some type of civil service. It was always the pension, the benefits, the thought of, being out there. You drive by a car that's pulled over and people are on the side of the road. You're like, I wonder what's going on there. I wonder what that is, like the wanting to know. So it always intrigued me, but I wasn't sure directly, what path I really wanted to go. So yeah, I took the test, and it's been a great career for me, man. It opened up a lot of doors, a lot of different things. So yeah, I mean, this was right for me, man. Like I said, I think it's a blessing. I think I found my calling with what I'm doing, and I enjoy it.
Jay, what about you?
It wasn't part of the plan. I come from a line of first responders, and like any other young man, you're trying to figure out your way in life, and I just got to a point where I needed to make a definitive decision as to what I was going to do in my life. And so, I took every test under the sun, and NYPD called me first. And then I remember being down there. I remember getting a call. I remember exactly where I was. It's funny that you mentioned that, because I remember exactly where I was when I got the phone call that I was going to be reporting to Brooklyn College to, be sworn in. And I was walking into the gym, and they were like, hey, buddy, come in business attire to Brooklyn College, 7 a.m. sharp. And I just, I was very grateful, because I think at that time I didn't really know where, I was going to go as far as my career. And, PD called and gave me an opportunity. And then I remember Andy Black called me, and Detective Andy Black called me. He's like, hey, man, I saw you took our test. Are you interested in coming in? They were looking to get 5 transfers, and I ended up getting picked. And that probably was the greatest thing that happened to me in my life, because not for nothing, my quality of life here has been great. Like you said before, this job has, afforded me a pretty good lifestyle, and a damn good quality of life. So, I'm grateful. But it wasn't always part of the plan. I just kind of feel like the job chose me, almost like divine intervention, So, thanks for asking that question, Gus, because I was going to skip me and kind of go back to, the next question. So the next question is, what does a day off look like for you guys? Are you unplugging, or are you still half on duty? And what helps you feel normal again? Because I think a lot of people believe that cops just are copping all day, right? Like,
Right.
We don't turn it off. And it's a hard thing to switch off, but there is things that we can do to kind of do that, to unplug and unwind. So what does that look like for you?
For me?
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely, I think more so now, I definitely try to unplug, to decompress. I think it's important. I have some hobbies that.
You do.
You gonna plug it or what?
You're gonna plug it or what?
Well, since you asked, Jay, so my son and I run an online comic book and collectible store.
Okay.
Augie's Comics and Cards.shop.
Yeah, there
Great
you
pricing.
go.
Yep.
Great pricing.
Thank you. And, so that's a big disconnect for me. 'Cause it has nothing to do with law enforcement or anything like that. So to me, that's the escape for me, is to just be able to go home and focus on that. And so my days off, that's what I'm doing. Whether we're doing shows somewhere, or if I'm online running auctions, or, whatever it is. But that's really my disconnect. And, it's a newfound treasure for me. So we've been up and running for about a year now. So, yeah, I'm thankful that I have that because it does help.
Good.
Because it has nothing to do with, being a cop at all.
Let me ask you a question, right?
Yeah.
This is kind of like off script a bit, right?
Oh, boy.
If you could have a comic, right?
Oh,
What is that
man.
one of one that you would want? I got to ask this because he's a big comic guy.
Oh, man, that's a tough one. That's a tough one, Jay.
I want the Grail of Grails.
Grails.
Oh, man. I guess Action Comics, the first Superman Action Comics or Superman 1 would be cool. I had one of the ones I always wanted was Secret Wars 8, which was the black costume Spider-Man.
Oh, wow.
So
Yeah.
I got that. So that checked off that grail. That was kind of, it's not a major high priced one, but
It's still a good one.
It's a cool cover.
It's a classic, yeah.
Yeah, but I think something like that. But they're untouchable. That'll never happen for me. But
They don't put that into the
oh
universe.
man, we're talking millions, and that's probably
You
not
never
gonna
know.
happen.
You might win it. You could stumble upon something
All right,
like that. You never
let's
know.
put that out in the
Let's
universe.
put that out in the
That'd be
universe.
fantastic.
Somebody guys out there.
Yeah, probably that. Yeah,
Yeah? Okay.
I think so.
I always wanted to.
iconic.
I always wanted to ask you that question
Yeah, it's
because I
iconic.
know you're a big comic guy.
Yeah.
Kamar, what does unwinding, unplugging look like for you? What does a day off look like for you?
So I definitely unwind. I kind of leave a lot of the stuff that we deal with here at work. But it's funny, the training that I received, being police officer in policing for this many years, like my tactics never kind of take a day off. Like I still, when I go through a door, I might kind of, what do you call it? You might kind of
Slice the pie?
Slice the pie,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, like
yeah.
certain things mentally, like just
I
I
do
kind
that.
of don't turn that off in terms of
Right.
that protection wise, because you're protecting your family and that's kind of the nature we're in. But besides that, yeah, man, I love to work out. I love just to spend time with my family. I'm a big movie guy.
Me too.
I watch
Movie guy
all
as
type
well.
of movies all day. I can just sit on the couch and just watch movies if I had the time. And then just spending time with my family, my friends, man. Like that's how I unwind. Like I like to be around people. I like to talk to people, speak to people about certain things, and just bounce ideas and just relax. So as long as I'm around people that I enjoy being around, that's my unwind. You know what I mean? Like so.
I like
That's
that.
pretty good for me.
It's a good
Yeah,
answer.
man.
What about you, Freddie? What's that look like for you?
Yeah.
He's a man of many talents over here.
Life is busy, man. 2 young kids. It is just weekend sports. It is just nonstop. We do have a heavy job. We deal with a lot of stuff here, so turning that off sometimes can be a challenge. But it's good. Preoccupied, busy. Just when I leave here, I try not to think about too much stuff that goes on. And my phone is always on. We're always getting calls here and there off duty because it's kind of like a niche thing where the mental hygiene law can get complicated sometimes and some gray areas. So people do reach out from time to time. But for the most part, when I'm out of here, I shut it off, and it's family time to unwind. We're taking Homer out. He's going, in the warmer weather down by the water.
By the water, yeah,
We're
take
not
a go
doing
swim.
sports. Like Kamar says, hanging out with friends, just kind of decompressing. Non-police friends is the way to go.
Yeah.
Keeps you out of this whole
Keeps you out of the
mindset.
Yeah, because then, when you hang out with cops, you talk about cop things.
Yeah,
So when you leave,
yeah.
you kind of want to, unplug that. Yeah, I think I'm kind of the same way. I love to work out. I love to do things outdoors. That's been like a new thing. I was never like a ruck guy or like, a hike guy, but I started to, find peace and solace in that. So I do that. And, try to spend time with loved ones, man. When you have a job like this, it makes you appreciate the small things. We go to calls where people are sometimes not in the best shape, and it makes
It's never their best day.
It's never their best day.
Never
So
their best day.
it just makes me have a lot more outward gratitude. I'm always grateful for the simple things, food, shelter, water, that kind of stuff. So just kind of on board everybody here, just spending time around like loved ones. I figured that is the common theme, right? Gus has got his thing with his son, and I think that's a great way for you and your son to bond. And I think a lot of guys need to reground with stuff like that, just kind of really focusing on what really matters, and that's like family and just kind of enjoying life.
Plus, I think that like the job that we do also humbles you too, because especially with anything with kids, man, it's just you're just so grateful after you're done working a job where you just see a kid, somebody young, or anybody adult in crisis. You're like, man, I'm grateful for my family where we're at. It kind of puts you in a mindset like, And things could be way worse.
Yep.
You know what I mean? There's a lot of families, a lot
say
of
that
people
all the
dealing with a
time.
lot of stuff, man. And you just, it kind of, it's selfish in a way. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but it's like you come out of that situation once it's all calm. It's like, wow, man, I'm thankful I'm not dealing with that. I
Yeah.
can help them, but at least I'm in a situation that's not like that. So
Absolutely.
I feel like our job is humbling too. In a way.
I'm happy you touched on that because that kind of brings us to our next question. What's something about this profession that people would understand differently if they could ride along for one shift? Right? That I like.
It's
when
time
I-
we got.
Yeah.
The reason why I asked that question because it's such a loaded. You can go so many different ways. But like I know everybody here is going to have a different answer. But I'm going to start with Gus. You know, what do you think about that?
Well, I think, man, that's tough because, you know, I think the things that we see are taken for granted. And I think, you know, if we had people riding along with us, I think it would give them a much better perspective of our job and the split-second decisions that we have to make on a daily basis and how taxing that is to one's psyche. You know, when that radio goes off, you know, your adrenaline spikes, you know, and you're always kind of waiting for the next call.
Yep.
You know, that call's done, you decompress a little bit, then the radio goes off again. And you know, is that my call? You know, whose call is it? Then, you know, and part of it's even like, okay, that's my, you know, my buddy's in the sector car next to me. You know, I heard that call. I hope they're okay.
Yeah.
You know, there's always that stress level that's always up. And I think it would be important for people to see that and understand that, you know, and that we're doing this for our career. It's not that we're just doing it for 1 day or 2 days. This is, you know, 26 years, 20 years, 20 years, you know, 10 years, 11 years, whatever. You know, it's like it takes a toll, and I think people have to understand that we are human. We have families, we have loved ones, and we are human. And I think, you know, I think people lose sight of that. We're not disposable.
That's a great answer, man. I mean, that was probably the route I was going to take. You agree?
Yeah, man. It's just because we're not robots, man. I think people see the uniform, and it's why, you know, for our unit, I don't know if we've spoken before, like we're more plain clothes, more relaxed, because some people are kind of threatened by when they see the uniform.
Yeah.
But we're not just, you know, one set with different personalities, different life experiences, different upbringings, cultures. So everything affects us kind of differently in that way. So we're not just set as just robots, and we don't have any emotion. A lot of these calls that we have to make some tough decisions, you know, we take that personally, but we have to kind of fight through that and do what's kind of right in that situation. So yeah, it's just a second.
Yeah. What about you, Freddie? You want to add to that, or?
I mean, I kind of feel the same way. I share a lot of the same sentiments with that. You know, a different spin on it, not so much the, you know, on our end of things, but like for people, if they rode along with us, I think they would, you know, maybe not take things for granted as much. Kind of like Kamar was touching on earlier. Nobody's calling us to go anywhere because they're having a good day.
Yep.
You know, we're showing up somewhere. It's the worst of the worst, right? Like we've all been to the, you know, the kids who have died. We've been to the family members who had a heart attack in front of their other family members. We've been to all that, and I think that, you know, you do a ride along for a couple days and you see how tough life can be for some people, and maybe it gives you different perspectives on your own life, and you know, how fortunate we are to be here every day and have loved ones that are around us.
Yeah, that's another great answer. Yeah, I can't even piggyback on that because I think everybody here touched on, you know, what I was thinking and how I feel. You know, one thing I could say about this unit, like we'll go to a call and we'll actually sit down and talk about it afterwards. Yeah. And I think that's part of the job where I don't know if the average person can fathom that we'll sit down and just have a human conversation about it, not just a police officer conversation about it, the human aspect of it. You know, you'll go to a call and it's like, you know, we understand the circumstance of it, and then we all like sit down and kind of unpack it, and it's like, damn, man, like that's got to be rough to be in that particular situation, and you know that it's probably not going to get better. You know, it's only going to get worse, and you know, us having the conversations that we have, it does put things into perspective, right? And I don't think a lot of people see that side of the badge. I think a lot of people just think that we go out and we're robots, and you know, we don't have a heart, we don't have a spirit.
We know, yeah. We've been on a few of them where we walked out of
Yeah,
there.
man. But we've had conversations like,
This
damn,
is
tough.
changed as a person leaving
Yeah.
that. You know, so
being
yeah,
that we
it's
just
tough.
touched on that, right? Like after a tough shift like that, like what do you do when you get home? Like what does that look like when you get home from like you had a rough call? Like what does that day look like? How do you kind of mitigate those feelings?
What does that look like when I walk in the door? Two wild kids going crazy.
That takes it right up to that.
No, it's you know what, for me, and I know I say this and I shouldn't be in like the mental health world here, but like I'm able to kind of detach for the most part, man. Like, you know what,
You have
like I leave what happens here, you know, because when it spills over into your personal life, it gets real messy, right? That's when, and I'm not saying that I'm not guilty of it. There's been times when I've been, you know, super upset and I'll go home and, you know, I just kind of isolate, try and keep to myself. I don't want to be bothered. I don't want to be, you know, I'm in my own head about what just happened, what we just saw, what we were just dealing with. But for the most part, I've been fortunate in the years I've been doing this and been a cop. I'm able to detach. I'm able to kind of compartmentalize it, leave it away for a while, and just kind of move on in my life and focus on something else. For me, it's, you know, every morning I see you in the gym, and that's my regulation. You know, I get up in the morning, I start with something positive. I get in there, and I'll even if I get a half hour and that's it. For me, it's just it's resetting my body, resetting my mind, and starting fresh for the day. Yeah, you have to. Otherwise, you know, you can't dwell on everything here.
Yeah, to eat you alive. Gus?
Yeah, well, you know, when my kids were younger, it was the same. Like, you know, they occupied a lot of my time. I was coaching and whatnot, you know. Where it really, you know, becomes interesting is once that's done, you know, when your kids are older and they've moved on, right? That's where, you know, I'm very thankful for the store and my hobby. You know, we joke about it, but that's why, you know, you guys are working out. It's great. You know, you got to have something for when those days are done. When your kids are older and they got their own lives and they're with their friends and, you know, and then you're like, well, I'm not coaching anymore. What am I going to do? Right? Yeah. What am I doing now? Right. It's lacrosse season. Why am I not on the field? Right. That's where, you know, having the business on the side really helps tremendously because that is my escape for the most part, you know. And I have a dog home too, and you know, my son's still home. He goes to school locally, so luckily I have him. My daughter's down in Philly in vet school, so you know, she's a little far away, but you know, you just got to find that. You got to find something to fill that gap, you know, and talk to your family. Don't keep it in, right? Don't keep it in. If they ask how you doing or what's wrong, tell them. Right? They know you, right?
Yeah.
So tell them what's going on. It's okay. I you know, for a lot of years I didn't do that with my kids. I didn't want to expose them. I was like, oh, I can't tell them what Dad does. You know, I don't want them. But then, you know, and they would be like, hey, Dad, can we go here? Or hey, Dad, can we do this? And I'm like, nah, you can't do that. No. But why? You know, so and so's parents are letting them go, and I'm not so and so's parents. You know, and then as I got older, I kind of explained to them, you know, your dad sees things that average parents don't see. You know, so you have to understand where I'm coming from, and it's for a reason, you know. And I think just talking is important, you know.
And that's the part we don't turn off. I was saying, like, just those feelings of what we're seeing out there. It's like, no, you're not doing that, because I know, like, I've seen what that can happen.
My dad used to do it to me.
It's like, it's weird.
And I understand it now. I never understood it as a child. I would question it, but it makes sense, and I totally get it now. I'm glad you touched on that, because I was gonna like kind of dig deeper on that, but you kind of went in there and kind of answered the question without me having to ask it. So, you know, the podcast is called the Gems of Public Safety Podcast, right? So, what's one gem you would give to someone looking to get into this profession?
Who's going first?
You can go, Gus, because you're the senior man on the totem pole here.
I don't know if that's good or bad. So I learned something a while back from one of my partners. And it was, you know, we should always treat people as we'd want a member of our family treated.
I agree.
If they were going through something and they were looking for help, how would you want your family member treated? And that's one thing in all the trainings that I've done, I've always tried to get that across. And, you know, I say to as many people as I can, it's important for us, especially in what we do, is that we need to treat people with dignity and respect and treat them as the way we'd want our family to be treated.
Phenomenal answer. I was going to say the same thing, so I don't have to answer that. Freddie?
I would say be humble. If you come into this profession, be humble, right?
That's a great one,
What is the, was it Spider-Man? With great power comes
Great responsibility.
Right?
Nice.
That's the comic guy, that, man.
Yeah. No, you got to be humble. Somebody said to me early on, too, this could be the easiest 20 years of your life or the hardest.
Wow. Gem. That's a gem.
Yeah, man. It's one of those things where, you know, again, we're dealing with people on their worst day. Nobody's ever calling us for a good reason. Be humble. Realize why you took the profession, right? When life starts beating you down with whatever calls you're going on after a while, and, you know, you come from one traumatic call to now you're going to the noise complaint, and, you know, you're a little ticked off about it. Remember, this person's having an issue, right? Try and take a step back and say, you know, this crisis is different than this crisis. Let me keep my cool and give this person the same respect that I would give anybody else. So, yeah, man, just be humble. Be humble and treat everybody with respect. You know, you're no better that because you get a badge. You have power that, if anything, in my opinion, makes you more accountable for your actions to
Indeed.
do the right thing.
Great answer, Freddie. What about you, Kamar?
For me, man, I think the greatest tool that you have policing is your words. You know, like there's a lot of people out there that can fight, use their hands. They have different type of training. It's great, but I always say the way you talk to somebody, the way you can de-escalate a situation or escalate a situation, is the key to not only preserving that person's life and their emotional state and the way they feel, but also preserving your own. You know what I mean? Like the way you talk to people, and that's in life too. The way you talk to people, it's very important.
I want to add that to mine, too.
Yeah. What's
Yeah,
the saying
good
with the you get more honey? What?
You get more bees with honey than you do with
Yeah,
vinegar.
Yes,
man. I think the way people, and I just think overall, people talk to each other now is kind of weird. And you know, if we just show some more respect and some empathy and some compassion to what people are dealing with, that can go a long way in really kind of diffusing situations. So I say that your words are important.
Man, these are all great answers. I love it. I don't have to say anything because everybody kind of said what I wanted to say. So that was our closing question. And I like to end every podcast off with this, right? Remember why you took this job. Remember the reason why you became a police officer. Never lose sight of that, because there's days where you might question why you took this job. You have to revert back to that root reason why you took it. I always say that, man, because things can get real hazy when you see the world not at its best. You know, one bad call shouldn't dictate the remainder of your career. So just keep that in mind. And with that being said, I want to thank you guys for tuning into the Gems of Public Safety podcast. It will be available on all streaming platforms. That's Google Play, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Like, subscribe, share. It'll help us with our outreach and trying to building our fan base. Once again, I'd like to thank the Department of White Plains Public Safety for giving us this opportunity to do such. Thank you to Commissioner Wade for coming up with this great concept. And until next episode, see you then.